playing between chords, okay, phrases between chords. How do we do that? Is there like a blueprint, a roadmap that you can follow to come up with some beautiful phrases? Then I'm going to show you how you can do that, and we're going to work on one key, one scale, and one chord progression, okay? We're going to combine these things together so that you can learn how to improvise over a chord progression. It's a really broad topic, guys. It's easy to get confused. So I'm going to break it down in 5 different steps, and hopefully you're not going to get confused, okay? We're going to learn the chord progression, we're going to learn the scale, and then we're going to put it together, and I'm going to show you how you can spice up the phrases using different rhythm, different rhythmic approach, different techniques as well, okay? Thank you so much for watching this video, and subscribe to the YouTube channel if you want to keep up with all the upcoming lessons, okay? Thank you so much for all your support, guys, all your comments, and thank you so much for watching this video. Now let's have a close-up and let's get started. Now the first step, guys, is to memorize the chord progression, and we are in a key of a D major, really simple key, and we're going to have a D major, a B minor, an A major, and a G major chord. One more time, D major, B minor, A major, and a G major. Okay. Now the secret here is to get rid of the whole chord. You only want to play the bass note, okay? So the first thing is to memorize the bass note, okay? And for the D major, we're only gonna have the 4th string, okay? Open, which is the root note of D. Then you have the B minor, which is the 5th string, fret number 2, is the root note of the B minor chord. Okay. The A major, root note of A is the 5th open string. Okay. And then you have the root note of G, which is the 6th string, fret number 3. Okay. So the whole chord progression from playing full chords to just playing the root note. Okay. So you have D. You're gonna play the root note twice. 2, 3, 4. 2, 3, 4. And 2, 3, and 4. And 2, 3, and 4. It's very simple, and if you check the score, you will notice that the bass note, the chord, is only played on the first count. Okay, so you have 1, 2, you have 3 counts, 3 beats, which are actually empty, and we're going to use these 3 beats to actually play the phrase. So the chord is only on the first count of each bar. Okay, so extremely simple. Very, very simple. And the reason why we get rid of the chord is just because we don't want to focus on the chord, we're going to focus on the phrasing. And so if you only have to play the bass note, it's actually easy for you to play the bass note, then play the full chords. Okay, so the first step, come up with a chord progression, get rid of the full chord, and only memorize the root note. Then we move on to the step number 2. Now the step number 2 is to come up with a scale, and we are in the key of a D major, so we're going to use a D major scale. 7 different notes. We're not gonna learn the scale from the root note, from the starting D, but we're gonna learn the scale within a position, and we're gonna learn the scale over 3 strings: the 1st, the 2nd, and the 3rd string. Okay, and what happens is we're gonna have the 3rd string, fret number 2 and 4. Okay, and then we're gonna have the 2nd string on the fret number 2, 3, and 5, okay, and the 1st string exactly the same thing, fret number 2, 3, and 5. This is a D major scale, okay. It doesn't start from D, but I'm using all the notes from the D major scale. So I'm having, and you want to memorize the scale. That way I kind of really find it easy to keep the index finger on the fret 2, and I have, starting on the 3rd string, I have 1, 3 as fingering, okay, on fret 2 and 4, and then I have the 2nd string, fret number 2, 3, and 5, and I'm always kind of using the 1st finger, the 2nd finger, and the 4th finger, and then I'll do the same on the 1st string. Okay, so the first thing you want to do, just practice the scale up and down. Always alternating with the right hand. Okay, and if you really want to kind of, figure out how the scale sound on each chord, you could play the root note, okay, and then the scale. So I'll play the D major, and then the scale. Then the B minor, and the scale. A major, and the G. Okay, it's a really, really nice way of practicing chords and the scale. Now, it still kind of sounds like an exercise. It is an exercise, but it really helps you to, visualize the root note at the beginning. Now, if you check the score, you have the root note at the beginning, and then on the third and fourth count, you have the scale. So you see that we start filling in the gaps between these chords, okay? And you will see how cool it is then to keep the root note always on the beat number 1, and then we're gonna add a few phrases between the chords, okay? So step number 2, come up with a scale, and always kind of, define the scale within one position, just on 3 strings, okay? The top 3 strings, and then you start learning the scale and play the chord progression over the scale, okay? You don't want to do it simultaneously, just play the chord and then the scale. And then the step number 3 will be to start playing some phrasings, okay? So let's just give it a go. Now, step number 3, we're going to play some cool phrases, okay? Now, the first thing, guys, I really always recommend to come up with a short phrase, okay, from the scale, and then you repeat the same phrase on each chord. So you don't want to just start improvising like crazy over the chord progression without really knowing what you're doing. So come up with one phrase. I'm going to give you a few phrases, and then I repeat each phrase over the chord. So for example, if I play okay, so what I did, I play exactly the same phrase, which is actually, I'm using a pentatonic scale here. So I have third string fret number 2, 4, second string fret 3, 5, and the first string fret number 2, 5. Okay? And it's a really rhythmic, simple phrase. And I repeat the same thing on the B minor. And A and G. Very simple approach, okay? And the reason why we do that is just because you want to be able to always play the root note, the chord on the first count. And if you start improvising like crazy, it's not going to work, okay? So always remember, the root note always on the beat number 1. And let me give you another phrase. Very simple, guys. This is extremely simple, and it's just a D major scale, up and down, okay? It's a little bit more, sounds more like an exercise compared to the first one. And let me give you another one. Okay, so that's again another very simple phrase. You could also come up with stuff that is a little bit more rhythmic, guys, if you want. For example, like very, very rhythmic, and I'm just repeating each note twice. Okay, it's a very simple phrase, but it sounds nice because the fact that you repeat it twice, it makes it really jumpy and really rhythmic. So the step number 3 is to really start playing around with the scale, okay? And we're still kind of, you know, playing very simple ideas, and we're not really making it too difficult. But on the step number 4, we're going to add more rhythmic patterns and different techniques as well. So, you know, just try the step 3 for a while, following the scale and few simple ideas before you move on to the step number 4, which is a little bit more difficult and more rhythmic. So let's just check it out. The step number 4 is really cool, guys, because we are going to play some musical phrases, and we're not going to repeat the same thing over and over again, but we obviously need some structure. So the first thing that I like to do is to use the same rhythmic pattern, okay? So I focus a lot on the rhythm. I don't really focus a lot on how many notes I play. I don't really care about that. But the first step could be to come up with a really interesting rhythmic phrase, and then use the same rhythm over a different phrase. For example, if I play the first chord D major, I have this simple, beautiful phrase over the pentatonic, okay? Very simple. And I like the rhythm, so I have. Now I'm going to use the same rhythm over a different phrase, okay? So I'm gonna have D major, B minor, A, and G. Okay, so as you can see, the same rhythmic, exactly the same thing, but on a different strings and different notes. So by doing that, I'm not just playing, you know, and improvising just by playing notes. I'm actually referring to the rhythm, which is probably the most important thing, especially at the beginning. Now let me give you another example. So as you can see, this time I was kind of diversifying a little bit more, but you always have the same kind of rhythmic idea. Now, it doesn't necessarily mean that you have to play all the time. I could have exactly the same rhythmic idea with just 2 or 3 notes. So, as you can see, same idea, same rhythmic idea, and I will really start with that, guys, and it's a really beautiful approach. It's not too difficult, and it really prevents you to start playing, you know, like playing too many notes that doesn't really make sense. So, focus a lot on the rhythm. Step number 4 is really focusing on the rhythm a lot, okay? So, step number 5, let's check it out. We're gonna basically add the full chord and some different style, okay? So let's check it out. Now, step number 5, guys, you could add the full chord, okay, once you feel ready, and make the phrasing a little bit more difficult and articulate, more musical. You can use different techniques as well. So, for example, you could play the full chord, B minor, okay, A major, 3 and 4 and G, okay, and then then play phrases that are a little bit more difficult, use different techniques, like okay. So I was kind of improvising and playing with different approach. I'm playing the full chord and I'm playing a lot of hammer-on, which make the whole thing more rhythmic, and playing some slide, kind of changing position as well. But I think you have a lot of stuff that you can really work on from step 1 to step 4. Step 5 is probably the ultimate thing where you actually just play. But I will say focus a lot on step 3 and 4, okay? And if you are a beginner, you can definitely focus a lot on step number 1 and 2. Memorize the chord progression and then you come up with the scale. And then you slowly move on to step 3 where you actually start playing the scale over the chord progression. So really take it step by step. Just define your step and just work around this idea, okay? So guys, thank you so much for watching and I'll see you next time.